I've played through every game in the mainline Final Fantasy series at least twice. For some, I lost count a long time ago. Here's my definitive ranking of all 16 games. Dead last in 16th place is Final Fantasy III. Innovated the gameplay, but forgettable story. Despite the fact that FF3 introduced a job system to the series, it does little else to really innovate. The gameplay can be fun, but the story is just so underwhelming that it's forgettable. The characters lack depth, and the end boss feels like it comes out of nowhere. All the games in the series are good in their own right, but this one is by far the weakest. In 15th place, Final Fantasy XVI. Despite some recurring elements, it doesn't even feel like a Final Fantasy. The Final Fantasy series has been innovating and evolving for close to 40 years, so it's expected that each new game will be different from the last. But this doesn't even feel like Final Fantasy anymore. To say I was excited for this game is an understatement, but I kept playing it waiting for it to evolve. The combat, the leveling, the side quests, but ultimately it boils the formula down to a simple hack and slash. There's no challenge to any of it. All the RPG elements that make these games what they are removed, and the game is incredibly boring because of it. The story was good though. In 14th place, Final Fantasy XI. A bold move to an MMO that only paid off for those that had the time. I actually love FF11. I have some good memories of playing it with friends. It was actually wanting to play this when it came out that first got me into building my own PC. However, I didn't manage to get through nearly as much of it as I would have liked because it's incredibly punishing and time consuming. It made sense for Square to make a Final Fantasy MMO, but like any MMO, it's really only good for people who have the time to sink into it, and I don't. In 13th place, we have Final Fantasy II. They tried something new, it didn't work, but kudos for trying. Also, what's with all the empty rooms? The new leveling system was really interesting at first, but it became apparent very quickly that it is incredibly broken. In principle, it's a good idea. The more you use certain abilities or weapons, the more proficient you become in them, but this becomes easy to exploit. It doesn't help that some of the maths behind the system is messed up either. The story is really interesting though, and the characters get a lot of good development considering the limitations at the time. And what's with all the empty rooms? It's a very cheap and stupid way to try and make a game longer for no reason, and it ruins a lot of the fun of exploration. I'd have ranked this game lower if not for the story. In 12th place, Final Fantasy I. Groundbreaking for the time, but basic when viewed through a modern lens. This is where it all started, and frankly it deserves so much credit for blazing the trail for the incredible series that would be spawned from it. By today's standards, it's fairly basic. You pick your classes at the start and just play through as they are. However, there are so many things that this game did first, it's got to be up there as one of the most important games in history. It's well worth playing at least once, if only to see how far the franchise has come. In 11th place, it's Final Fantasy XV. The epitome of it's the journey that matters, not the destination. I would emphasise that from this point on, every game on this list is one that I replay regularly. I'm coming to each one critically, despite the fact that I love every one of them. With that said, let's discuss Final Fantasy XV. To really appreciate this game, you need to watch the tie-in prequel Kingsglaive first, and then after you're done, you need to play the DLCs. If you do that and you take it in, it's an incredible story with a deep and rich lore. If, however, you just play the game, you might be confused by some things, but that's okay. The gameplay is fun, if a bit clunky at times, and the chemistry of the four leading men is charming and infectious. Plus, the food looks amazing. The last stretch of the game can be a bit long and tedious though, which might dishearten some people. In 10th place we have Final Fantasy XII. A huge world just ripe for exploration, but the politically charged story lacks that thrill factor. Safe to say the world of Ivalice is huge and sprawling. There's so much to do and explore, it really makes for a lot of fun. Some might say that the game plays itself given the gambit system, however that's simply not true. For the gambit system to work properly, you have to constantly change and fine-tune your gambits. This can make for some really great combos as well as some disasters. It's in figuring it all out that you find the challenge, on top of exploring the world and searching out some of the tougher super bosses. The story can be a little boring. It suffers from focusing too much on the political nonsense rather than the magic and mystery, and there's just a personal element missing that holds it back too. Despite this, it's a very engaging game with lots to see and do, and is up there alongside my favourite games ever. In 9th place, Final Fantasy XIV. A complete MMORPG to rival the biggest despite a shaky start. One of the smartest business decisions that Square Enix ever made was to completely scrap the first version of FF14 and build it again from the ground up, and thus A Realm Reborn was born. I played both versions of the game, and the first was really close to what Final Fantasy XI was without much in the way of development. Who would have thought that throwing the whole thing in the trash and starting again would actually result in one of the best and most successful MMORPGs of all time? A Realm Reborn is an amazing game. It creates a unique experience while leaning into all of the Final Fantasy tropes we've come to expect. I had a great time with it and played through several expansions, but I barely scratched the surface of the content contained within. If you want to sink some real time into an MMO, you won't find a better one than this. In 8th place, Final Fantasy V. The job system is fantastic and you have to fight a magic tree. What's not to love? FF3 might have created the job system, but FF5 perfected it. It's a lot of fun to experiment with the different jobs, and combining their skills can make for some really cool combinations. It also gave us the debut of Gilgamesh, who's gone on to be an endearing character that ties the series worlds together. The main characters lack some depth, but the story is great and gives us one of the series' most memorable antagonists in the sadistic Exdeath. Frankly, FF5 deserves to be this high purely for the battle on the Big Bridge theme, which is a simply sublime track that really gets the blood pumping. In 7th place we have Final Fantasy IV, a truly remarkable story about redemption and fighting for your beliefs. FF4 was the first of the 2D games that I played, and it really spurred me on to go and play all the rest of them. I was, and still am, captivated by the story. Cecil's constant struggle with the darkness inside him, coupled with a myriad of challenges and betrayals, is really compelling. Each character has a unique story and abilities, but the gameplay is fairly typical Final Fantasy. Exploring the world and watching the story unfold is amazing. In 6th place, Final Fantasy VI. A deep story, a rich cast of characters, and a crazy villain really test the limits of storytelling with 2D sprites. There's so much to love about Final Fantasy VI. Just about every character is well thought out, their motivations, their desires, their abilities. The story is rich in lore and adventure, and there's something so interesting about exploring a villain who just wants to destroy their world, and in a lot of ways succeeds in doing so. Of all the FF games, I think that this one does the best job with the summons. Making them an integral part of not just the story, but the gameplay weaves everything together and deepens the connection between the gameplay and the story and makes the game really immersive. On its own, Final Fantasy VI is up there as one of the greatest games ever made, and probably all-time top 5 2D games. In 5th place, Final Fantasy IX. On their own journeys of self-discovery, each character makes us ask questions about our own lives. The story of Final Fantasy IX is a beautiful adventure that starts with a humble group of bandits and ends with the fate of existence in the palm of your hands. And all along the way, a lovable group of misfits learn about themselves, each other, and the world around them. Some fall in love, and others experience heartbreak. And despite occupying a fantasy world filled with monsters and weird races, there's something so human about all of them. This is no better epitomised than by the character Vivi. In a lot of ways, he's experienced the world as we are, and watching his growth throughout the game is wonderful. The gameplay works similar to FF4 in that each character has a unique set of skills, however there's much more individual customisation. Coupled with the sheer amount of minigames and side quests, there's never a dull moment as there's always something new to discover. In 4th place, Final Fantasy XIII. A compelling story and likeable characters make for much more than a simple corridor simulator. I feel like too many people give FF13 a bad rap. It's quite linear for much of it, which is a fair criticism, but other great games are linear too. The Last of Us, for instance, is incredibly linear, but no one complains about that. In fact, it's considered one of the greatest games of all time, and in my opinion, Final Fantasy XIII has a better story and more fun gameplay. The game uses a lot of new, made-up terms for the different stuff that's going on, like l'Cie, Sif, etc. But if you make the bare minimum effort to just remember what these mean, it's really easy to get to grips with the complex lore. The characters are thrust into an impossible situation and given little to no guidance, and while figuring it all out, you discover more about the world and their place in it. I love the combat as it requires you to actually think tactically about every single encounter instead of just mindlessly hacking and slashing. Overall, it's an amazing game, but funnily enough, I actually think the sequel, FF13-2, was even better. And now on to the top 3. In third place, Final Fantasy VIII. Love, war and sorceresses. A man struggles to embrace his destiny in a journey across time. FF8 was the first Final Fantasy game that I discovered for myself. After having fallen in love with RPGs playing FF7, I was so excited for 8 to come out, I called off school so I could stay in and play it. And it did not disappoint. From the moment that Liberi Fatale hits as the waves crash against those golden sands, I was hooked. The brooding Squall and his cool gunblade immediately caught my imagination, and his budding love affair with our heroine Rinoa captured my heart. It's probably my all-time favourite Final Fantasy story. The gameplay is really fun. Discovering the intricacies of the junction system, the customization of all the GFs and each character's unique limit breaks is so much fun. And don't get me started on Triple Triad. Such a simple concept for a card game, but it's executed so brilliantly that it never gets old. So much so that they've even recreated it in Final Fantasy XIV. Overall, FF8 is a compelling and exciting game. It has huge set pieces and intimate moments that make it a complete experience. In second place, Final Fantasy X. Discovering the world through Tidus' eyes opens us all up to real love and friendship. The Final Fantasy series' first installment on the PS2 opened up the franchise to so many new avenues for both gameplay and story. We got voice acting, full 3D graphics, faster load times, more beautiful cinematics, and so on. Even by today's standards, it still looks pretty good. While the group travels together, almost all of them from the start, they are each on their own journey, but it's the developing relationship between Tidus and Yuna that really captures the imagination and fuels the emotional and heart-wrenching moments that bind the narrative together. It's the only FF game where I actually still cry at the end when it's all over. The gameplay takes a bit of a shift from previous titles by abandoning the ATB system and going more turn-based, but there's more to it than that. You have to be quite tactical and make use of all of your characters, which helps to deepen your attachment to everyone in the group. Chuck some fun and some frustrating mini-games and side quests, and you've got one of the greatest games ever made. And in first place, my all-time best Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy VII. It captured the hearts of a generation and its legacy endures to this day. Final Fantasy VII was released in 1997 to critical acclaim. For its time, the graphics were unparalleled, the gameplay fun and exciting, but it was the characters that really grew in the hearts and minds of the players. So enduring is the legacy of FF7 that it has spawned countless spin-offs, prequels, sequels, films, and now a full-blown 3-part remake that finally visualises the game the way I did in my head all those years ago. FF7 was the first RPG I ever loved. I played a few before, like Super Hydlid on the Sega Mega Drive, but this was the first one that really made my heart skip a beat. I keep coming back to it, time and time again, and I love every second. I feel like I've explored every nook and cranny of this game, yet it never loses its appeal. I'll admit that for those who weren't around when it first came out, it might seem dated, but I strongly recommend playing it. The story is so engaging and as relevant now as it was then. The battle for the planet, corporations sucking the planet dry, the struggle of man versus nature, nature versus nurture. It's an allegory for the society we live in today and the probable inevitability of our own demise as a species. But anyway, playing around with all the different materia combinations to hone your character's effectiveness is lots of fun. Finding a rare materia for the first time creates that excitement to try it out, and the same goes for new limit breaks. The world is lush and vast, filled to the brim with secrets. It's when you reach the gold saucer that you truly start to see the possibilities. The game is filled with mini-games, each more exciting than the last. For me, Final Fantasy VII is the perfect game. I love everything about it, even its flaws. And isn't that what true love really is? The release of Final Fantasy VII Remake in 2020 just supercharged my enjoyment of the series, and it's that everlasting appeal that makes Final Fantasy VII the greatest game in the Final Fantasy series, possibly of all time. There you have it, that was my definitive ranking of every Final Fantasy game in the mainline series. Like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and let me know your favourite Final Fantasies in the comments. Bye for now.